Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Feeling great, feeling fantastic. It is Friday, so I certainly expect most of us are feeling pretty good out there. But of course, as we all know, not everybody works the last day of the work week. Some people work on the weekend. So regardless, I hope you guys are feeling great out there and having a great start to your day. We got some strong to severe storms to talk about again today. We got flooding to talk about. This is ongoing right now. Some of the same areas are experiencing some flash flooding that's been dealing with it over the last several days. We'll talk about that. We'll update you on everybody. Northeast could have a lot of storm action today. There's going to be a corridor which stretches basically from the Central Plains all the way down to the deep south, southeastern U.S. that could see some strong to severe storms. Experiencing a lot of storms in these areas this morning. Flooding. There's not a whole lot of severe thunderstorm warning action out there, but some of this could become severe warning by the time I'm done dropping this video, whatever it may be. So a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. There's a lot of tabs pulled up, so you know it's going to be a long one, but all my videos are long. You guys know that. So with that being said, if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I'm on a mission to try to get the 40 members on this channel by the end of July, by about September 1st. I'm around 35, 36 members, so trying to pick up 4 to 5 more, but I certainly appreciate you folks considering. I understand not everybody can do something like that, and I don't want you guys to think that, I'm always asking. I try to ask like once a week, try to throw that in there in the beginning of the videos. I certainly appreciate you folks considering, and people who have actually joined the channel. It's just a great way to support what I do monthly, and I thank y'all for that. And appreciate y'all folks just making this a family type atmosphere on this channel. It's really appreciated. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, y'all know the deal. Please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it, and others can do so too. And it's a great way to glorify God through prayer. Let's get rolling this morning. Water vapor loop. For now, the ridge is somewhat, I would say, flattened out. Not, a little bit compared to yesterday. It's still there. It's going to be hotter than Hades still in areas of Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, even oozing into, further east into Mississippi and Alabama. But there's a pretty tight boundary. And where this boundary is where all the storm, heavy rain activity is riding. So we got this working. I do this. I do this every morning. We draw on the water vapor loop, kind of explain what's going on. So right where this line is, and of course, give or take 100 miles, is right where the boundary of this ridge of high pressure is. And basically, that is where all the storm action is taking. That's an ugly line. And that is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a lot of storm activity in Kansas this morning. This is going all the way into eastern portions of Missouri, all the way down to Tennessee, all the way down to Alabama and Georgia. These storms are literally ridge riding the ridge. That's what we call them in the weather world, ridge riders, and that's exactly what they're doing. High pressure still down here in this region, give or take, like I said, some mileage. On top of this, you just got a steady moist flow. You're going to get a lot of shower and storm activity in this entire region today, most likely, where you actually have a moderate risk for flash flooding, and we'll talk about that in detail later in the video. And then we have an upper to mid-level cyclone spinning around up here, and this is basically going to throw in a piece of energy into the northeast, provide shear and lift for a ton of shower and storm activity for especially this area right into here later this afternoon, this evening. But strong to severe storms are possible also in Pennsylvania. There will be a tornado threat, very low, but there. Damaging wind and hail threat. Everybody in between, just some scattered activity, shower and storm activity, but you won't see much storm action kind of in the Ohio Valley today, but we'll definitely watch for some pop-up activity. So that's kind of what's going on. This digging trough right into here will help to kind of reinforce some cooler air, but it won't stay along too long. You can see the water and the atmosphere basically dipping down right into here, a little bit of drier air in place. So that's what's going on the water vapor loop. Always love to show you guys that. Sometimes I'm sure it's hard to really understand what's going on there, but I try to explain in the best detail I can. So sometimes this is a much better way to explain it. Well, let's zone out from what we're seeing here. And as you can tell, and this is a little blurry, let's do it one more time. Here we go. So you know, back on the last panel where I drew the line from here all the way to here, right? And you can actually see the moisture following that. It's heading this way, and then it heads back southeast from the northwest. We call this a northwest flow, and this is basically just absolutely dumping tons of rain from Missouri through through western areas of Tennessee, extreme western areas of Kentucky, all the way down into northern Alabama, even all the way down into Georgia, and then it turns around and moves back northeast out to southwest. And this is basically that boundary setting up, and the digging trough right here still in place. Just kind of a weak boundary right in here. This is providing still shower and storm activity for the eastern Carolinas, waking up to a soggy morning in southeast Virginia, around the Norfolk, Virginia beach area. But it is raining like cats and dogs in this area. Nothing severe warned as of now, but you see these little boxes in here that has flash flood warnings. And then you got a kind of a bigger area of storms. We'll see if this loses some steam in the coming hours. But, definitely expect more shower and storm activity potential here in Kansas City here in the next couple hours. You're already waking up to a little bit of rain this morning. And, this is kind of what we talked about in yesterday morning's video, that this was going to cruise across areas of Nebraska and Kansas this morning. So that's kind of what's going on right now. And we will expect this to continue throughout the next 24 hours. Storm Prediction Center on our severe weather threat for today, a slight risk right here in areas of the high plains and just the central U.S. region. That's a level 2 out of 5. And then we got a marginal risk surrounding this, and then basically extending eastward, then back down to the southeast across the Mississippi Valley into the deep south until all the way to the Gulf coastline. And then we have a slight risk, which includes areas of Pennsylvania, New York State, and areas of southern New England, and just the interior northeast. Some higher elevations in this region, and we're going to expect a lot of storm activity up here today. Marginal risk surrounding this too, where I think even in the marginal risk, we could certainly see a lot of storm activity too. Kind of in the middle of this, not a whole lot of activity expected in the Ohio Valley today, but we certainly will watch for that area too. Tornado risk, only a 2% risk up here, but there is a risk. Okay, I would not be surprised to see some tornado warnings up here, Binghamton, Scranton, up to Albany, through the Valley region, up through the Catskills, even through the Berkshires, all the way up into southern areas of Vermont. So we'll watch out for a tornado threat there. Damaging wind threat, just a 15% risk of in each slight region right into here, risk area. That is a 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher within 25 miles in any given location. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour and mile per hour readings. Hail threat, we have a 15% risk in both of these slight risk areas also. So 15% risk here of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, and also right here. I'm making this video, as I always like to say, around 7-ish a.m. Eastern time, so we typically have another update literally about 45 minutes to an hour after the video drops, which is typically around 8 to 8:15 a.m. So just know I'm showing you guys this information on that time frame. Excessive rainfall outlook. Flooding will be a threat today. The Northeast has a slight risk. Missouri still has that slight risk where more shower and storm activity will develop later today. And then we really got to watch right here where the Dakotas connect to Montana. A moderate risk, that is at least a 40% risk of excessive rainfall being exceeded within 25 miles in any given location. The slight risk in the yellow, that's a 15% risk of that same criteria. These areas could get a lot of rain today, even in the slight risk. So please be careful of that. We'll double down on that information later in the video in each individual region. Watches, warnings, advisories. The purple excessive heat warnings are up for this region. It'll continue to be very hot. The orange heat advisories, very hot in those regions too. This is nothing new for you folks. But as mentioned, you can see where the high pressure is just looking at the advisories, warnings, and watches map. Okay, high pressure right over this region. Everybody outside of this has some dense fog advisories, flood watches. Typically along boundaries, you get fog. This is basically because you have the clashing between cooler and warmer, higher moisture air, if that makes any sense. Got a little tongue twisted there. So it's basically kind of a separate, when you have the separation between cooler, somewhat drier air and more moist, somewhat warmer air, you get fog, clashing of air masses, and that's why you have these dense fog advisories kind of around where this boundary is, where this ridge of high pressure is. Flood watches are up in the green. Flash flood warnings are up for the red. Flood watches up for the northeast already ahead of this heavy rain expected today from these storms. And right here in the northern plains, a huge area of Montana, Wyoming, and then the western Dakotas has flood watches up. So it's going to definitely be a threat for some flooding today in these regions. Let's talk about the southeast first. A couple areas to really watch. I will note that the short-range model guidance is not doing great picking up on this heavy rain that's currently in areas of Tennessee and northern Alabama. It is showing some rain in Alabama and Georgia, just not showing it as widespread as what it actually is. Okay, so we get this in motion. The idea is we're going to get more shower and storm activity that gets going in some of the same areas that are experiencing it this morning. Eastern Carolinas, down to southeast Georgia, all the way up to the Delmarva area today in eastern Virginia. Okay, and then we got to watch for another cluster of storms that gets going. We'll watch the atmosphere down here to really sort of build back in, if you will, kind of become unstable, if that makes any sense, from the morning convection on what the HRRR model is saying is going to eventually dwindle away in this region. We'll see if that actually happens, and then we'll have to watch for another storms. Could be a very stormy late evening for you folks in southern Georgia and North Florida. But let's go on and zoom into each individual region. I'm actually going to start off by showing you guys the NAM. I think the NAM is handling this a good bit better right now than the HRRR model. So we're dealing with all this shower and storm activity. We'll take a look at the radar currently in this region, and this is what's going on. So you guys, it's raining like cats and dogs just north of Birmingham, or maybe in Birmingham right now. Raining pretty good in Florence. You got a flash flood warning in and around the Huntsville area, just west of that area, and a lot of rain upstream continuing to surge in. And the NAM likes the idea of a line of storms dipping down into northern Mississippi. So let's go on and take a look at it. It continues this rain. The NAM wants to dissipate kind of the southern extent of this rain and then re-strengthens an area of storms. It'll continue to rain for most of the day, it looks like. I mean, there'll probably be some breaks here and there, but in western Tennessee, it's going to be a very rainy day. It's already a very rainy morning. Could get a break later this afternoon, though. Wants to develop a cluster of storms that surge through the northern half of Mississippi, dips down, might make it all the way to the Meridian area, then might make it all the way down to like Tuscaloosa, and then it kind of just weakens. So the NAM says, hey, most of the activity is going to be probably in the second half of this 24-hour period coming up. But the NAM does like a big old line of storms funneling in from the north into northern and northeast Arkansas as we're waking up for tomorrow morning. What does the HRRR model say for this? Well, I can tell you it's initializing kind of off. Now, if you look at the latest HRRR model, it's doing much, much better. But I will tell you the latest HRRR model, we're not going to be able to go but only 18 hours out. But let's go on and show it because it is now reinitializing a lot better. This is new to me because I normally show the 06Z HRRR model because it goes further out. But it's doing a lot better. It wants to keep all this shower and storm activity going. In Tennessee, we get to about mid-morning. It is still raining pretty hard up here. Some of these could be strong to severe. There is a little bit of a severe weather threat, a marginal risk level 1 out of 5, damaging winds. Can't even rule out a brief tornado. And I didn't mention this. My home state here in South Carolina, up in Greer, Greer got hit by a tornado yesterday. Pickens, I'm sorry, not Greer. Pickens got hit by a tornado yesterday. I got a buddy of mine that's a fellow weather enthusiast too. You'll probably see him on TV one day. I talk about him a lot. Gerald, I talk about his channel sometimes. Poor guy, and I wouldn't say poor guy, but the guy actually went storm chasing in northeast Georgia, and then he ended up literally getting a tornado in his front yard. So wild. He could have stayed home, and his parents ended up actually filming the tornado in their front yard. Pretty wild stuff. Hope you guys are well. I'm hearing the damage was pretty light, but it definitely was a confirmed tornado. You could visibly see the tornado. So you just never know. That area did not really have a big risk of severe storms in general. So you keep these going through mid to late morning. Still shows a lot of storm activity. We take it to about early to mid-afternoon. Wants to develop a line of storms around Birmingham. Sinks it southward into the Montgomery area. Then says, hey, it's going to be some high activity somewhere in southern Georgia, the Panhandle of Florida later this evening. So watch out if you got any outdoor activities along the Florida Panhandle. But the HRRR model does not show what the NAM does for this line of storms in Mississippi. So that's why I'm saying, these models are going to fight on what's going to actually happen, and we just have to see what does actually end up unfolding. But the blend of all models shows more rain falling in western Tennessee. Could get another inch or so of rain in northern Alabama. But please note that there's already a lot of rain falling in these areas right now. And but there could be additional more rain that falls in this little area right here. Not little, but pretty large area that basically stretches from Missouri all the way through northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, all the way to South Georgia. And we'll talk about South Georgia here in a second. Florida, typical kind of pop-up storms down here. Could be a stormy afternoon for the southern tip of Florida near Miami, points west. And these could kind of jumble up, dump a lot of heavy rain. But what I want to watch for is later on this afternoon, this evening, could get some storms around the Jacksonville area. Could be a stormy afternoon, evening for the southern half of Georgia. Definitely want to watch out for this region for some gusty winds. Large hail is possible, but the hail threat is pretty low with this setup. Gusty winds, a brief tornado is certainly possible, though. If you live in South Georgia, northern Florida, the Panhandle, Florida, but especially this area of North Florida, you definitely want to watch out for some severe storms later on. And then it gets into 10, 11 p.m., midnight, you get a larger line of storms that surges through the northern portion of Florida. Carolinas today, I think we'll just get some showers and storms that develops in maybe the eastern Carolinas. In and around the Charleston, basically the South Carolina coastline, could get some storms for sure. You're already dealing with rain this morning. But you could get some more storms later this afternoon. But I think eastern North Carolina, the areas of the Delmarva, southern Delmarva region, southeast Virginia could certainly see some storms this afternoon, this evening. And then by the time we get into overnight hours, if you're in the Outer Banks region, it could certainly be very stormy as we get into the overnight hours. If you're camping out on the Outer Banks, definitely be prepared. Around the Rodanthe area, places like that, could definitely be some heavy rain in this region. Rainfall, it really likes the idea of southern and southeast Georgia getting a lot of rain today. Even the South Carolina coastline, 1 to 2 inches of rain is possible. So be aware of this. Northeast today, pretty active day, guys. We'll start off this morning, but then the atmosphere basically becomes unstable for Vermont, New Hampshire, New York State, Pennsylvania down here, and you get a ton of pop-up showers and storms, and I really wouldn't call these pop-ups. They really, develop and get going and really move kind of west to east, and you keep these going. Look at all these storm action in New York, New England, Maine, everybody getting a lot of action, and then this eventually tries to drift all the way to the coastal regions later this evening. Okay, so let's just go on and zoom into each individual region. We'll talk about Pennsylvania first because there is a risk of severe weather. We take it to about lunchtime. Already some pop-up activity ongoing in the southern tier, central New York State. You guys got some activity ongoing. But you keep going hour by hour. You get into about early mid-afternoon. Big storms. I know I got a few viewers that view from the southern tier, Finger Lakes region of New York State. I would say if the further west you are, the less the chance of storms. But you start to get in and around the Finger Lakes area, around the Binghamton region, you definitely got a solid chance to see some storms today, some that which will be strong to severe. Damaging winds, brief tornado, is possible. Okay, do have a very low tornado threat there, and some hail is possible. Around the Scranton area, I would expect some storms later this afternoon. These continue, floating to the Poconos region, 7, 8 p.m. could be stormy. These storms could make it all the way down to New York City later this evening. I would certainly watch out around Allentown, the Reading area. Definitely get some storms later this evening. Basically in eastern PA. I would watch out for a line of storms that the HRRR model likes for this region. So if you're out and about in the town, wherever you may be, definitely be aware of some storms later this evening into this region. We move a little bit further northeast into New York State. We'll also talk about Vermont a good bit. We'll talk about kind of western Mass and Connecticut in this too. But you start off, lunchtime, 1 p.m. Storms are popping off up here. Utica, I think that's how you pronounce it. I think that is. But you guys could see some storms today. Burlington, Montpelier, I think that's how you pronounce it. Down to Albany, you guys will see some storms to all the Adirondacks, okay, into the mountains of Vermont. Also, a lot of storm activity. Okay, I would say down here in this area right here is where you're going to have your highest tornado threat. Okay, this is right where the slight risk goes through. And so please be aware if you live, in this region. What is that? I spend way too much time trying to figure out highways. Interstate 90, along that 90 corridor, you definitely want to watch out for a tornado threat, damaging winds, large hail. There's not a lot of towns that pop up on Cooperstown. What is that? Cobbleskill. That's funny. Glens Falls. You guys definitely going to get a lot of storm activity today. It's just, hey, is it going to be strong to severe, just regular storms? But definitely widespread activity. You take it to about 3 p.m. and I mean, you got strong storms. Like I said, near the Finger Lakes region, you got strong storms in the eastern portion of New York State. But man, look at Vermont, very active. These storms will drift, and I'll talk about Vermont here in a second. These storms really drift into kind of the western Mass region. It could get quite stormy for you folks later this afternoon, more so this evening. So if you live reside in the Berkshires, Pittsfield area, North Adams, definitely could get some storms around the 6, 7, 8 p.m. time frame later tonight, and these will drift through the state of Connecticut and then Rhode Island. But how much steam will they still have in this time frame? Unsure, but watch out late evening. Or, well, I would say early to late evening in that time, just the evening time frame. You guys could get some storms for sure. We move a little bit further northeast. Well, not quite yet. This is the updraft velocity swath. So this indicates these storms that could have a spin to them. Their updrafts are spinning, which means they have a chance to, you got a rotating thunderstorm. You got a chance to produce a tornado. You got some highlighted regions down here in the greens and yellows, which indicate that, hey, the latest long-range HRRR model likes this region for the highest tornado threat. This is right around the Scranton region, some higher populated regions in this area. I've been into this area one time when I chased that winter storm you guys got in December of 2020. Did not realize this area is as hilly as it is until I went up here. I was kind of ashamed that I didn't know that. But anyways, definitely watch out. Northeast, eastern PA. But even this area right in here to New York State, you want to watch out for a tornado threat. But basically these highlighted colors is where the HRRR model is trying to indicate where storms have the best chance, where the storms that it does have forming have a chance to rotate, if that makes any sense at all. Vermont, New Hampshire, interior areas, mountainous regions of the Northeast will clear out the morning convection, and immediately more storm activity gets going. And I mean, it's everywhere, guys. I can sit here and spit out every single name possible in Vermont and New Hampshire, but really everybody is getting a lot of storm activity. I would say it favors more so Vermont, but I mean, it gets very active. This is around 3 p.m. I mean, every town and community in Vermont, even northern New Hampshire, is experiencing a threat for storms. Strong to severe, damaging winds, hail, tornado threat. I would say the more so you work into this region, into southern Vermont, the higher tornado threat. But I mean, it has a storm right over the Boston area around 3 p.m. today. We'll see if that actually verifies. And then these storms kind of begin to maybe cluster up more so. I think when they pop off initially, they could be semi-discrete, which means you got to watch out for a tornado threat. Storms that are more discrete really can take advantage of the atmospheric players out there. But when they start to cluster up, they start to choke one another out, and then they really become somewhat more linear. But we get to about 5 p.m., it's raining like crazy in a good portion of New Hampshire. Storms everywhere. Very stormy Friday afternoon, evening for you folks. Might just be a good night just to chill inside, do some indoor activities. But the thing is these storms they might not just be your normal run-of-the-gun summer storms. They could pack a punch up here for sure. So it continues, 7, 8 p.m., still storming. I think it begins to chill out a little bit somewhat for the northern sections of New York State, Vermont, and New Hampshire. These storms are still kind of ongoing in the southern portion of the state, but they really begin to drift into the southern New England region as we get into the evening. And then by the time we get to the wee hours of the morning, most of the actions along the coastline of southern New England are off the coast. So could get a lot of rain into this region too. And I don't want to ignore the updraft velocity swath for this region also. Certainly got to watch out. It really likes Massachusetts down here in southern Vermont, even New Hampshire region. Show some highlighted colors. Got to watch out for the tornado threat. Okay, some of these storms absolutely will be spinning. The rain threat, areas could pick up 1 to 2 inches of rain with these storms a day. I mean, I could see somebody getting over that. If you continuously get hit by storms, it really favors this area of extreme southern Vermont and New Hampshire into northern sections and northwest sections of Mass. It likes central New York State also. or 1 to 2 inches of rain is showing up. So please be careful. A lot of rain could fall in this entire region today. South central U.S. will cover 2 different areas. The morning convection will continue to trail off. It says that, you're going to be dealing with a lot of shower and storm activity most of the day in eastern and southeastern Missouri. Okay, it does show a break sometime maybe late this afternoon into the evening, and then it shows another cluster of storms developing right here, kind of between St. Louis and Columbia, Missouri region, right into here. And then we got to watch out just kind of later tonight in Nebraska, and then we're getting into tomorrow. Let's zoom into each individual region. I will note this is what the HRPR model is saying. Well, we can actually look at the latest run. So it's initializing a little bit better now. This is what the HRPR model is saying is happening in Kansas right now. And then this is what's actually happening. And, it's at least it's showing convection, but it's a lot more broad than what it's actually showing on the HRPR model. But we'll give it some credit a little bit, but this will continue to trail off, and it's really adamant that it's going to dissipate, but it does. The latest run of the HRPR model does show a pretty intense storm developing kind of just north of the Topeka area in Kansas City region. This is drifting really close to the St. Joseph, Missouri region. So you want to watch and see how models trend with this. This looks like a pretty strong to severe storm developing, just lone storm. It's just one model run, and this eventually works its way downstream into Missouri and might develop into a more solid, bigger cluster of storms, if that makes sense. But we work our way into the evening, and of course we're going to have to probably flip to the long-range HRPR model. And it shows another cluster of storms developing in southwest Kansas, and then it begins to work its way. Watch out around the North Platte region, points south, then it begins to work its way into potentially into northern areas of Kansas just after midnight, and it could just be another stormy kind of after midnight time frame for areas of Kansas, southern Nebraska tonight. It's quite possible, but we'll see what happens. We look at Missouri. I want to note that there is a huge cluster of rain right here in Kansas. We just showed you this multiple times. Okay, how is this going to hold together? If it holds together, it's heading right towards the St. Joseph region. But I do want to note this isn't severe warned. But if you're in the St. Joseph area, if you're in kind of northern and northwest areas of Missouri, just basically this entire area of Missouri right into here. Okay, I'd watch out for this little cluster because eventually this will continue to trail off and then begin to dip more so south. Okay, you see what this is doing? This is moving like that. Okay, this is kind of moving like that. So the general theme is this will continue to ride the northern portion of this ridge of high pressure, which is way on down here, and this will continue to move into northern Missouri. But we got to see if this is going to weaken, this is going to strengthen. Most model guidance says, hey, this is probably going to weaken. Okay, but just keep that in mind. It does pretty much weaken it. The HRPR model does, but it takes some more energy that fires up later this afternoon. That same storm I just talked about in kind of northeast Kansas clusters this up, and in the meantime, you could get some storms firing up around the Springfield area and southern areas of Missouri. You guys could definitely get some storms around the 6-7 p.m. time frame, even into extreme northern Arkansas, and then this continues. And then this really develops into maybe an intense area of storms around Columbia, Jefferson City, and this might try to flirt with the St. Louis region as we get closer to midnight. Okay, rides that, Interstate 70, and heads potentially right into St. Louis. Could see some storms around the Mississippi River, Missouri, Illinois region, and then we could get some more storms to develop in southern Missouri based off the HRPR model as we're waking up tomorrow morning. So models are going to be everywhere with this area. It's going to be a tricky region to really figure out. But rainfall, this is just kind of what's going on right now, right? But I do want to note, okay, I'm going to take it through the next 24 hours. Okay, you see how the rainfall increases? That's between now and the next 24 hours. It really bulks up. So you guys, what I'm trying to say is you guys got more rain coming for these areas. National Weather Service wants to dump maybe another 1 to 2 inches of rain on you guys with what they're forecasting. So please be careful in this region. North Central U.S., the immediate Great Lakes region, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on. Just enjoy your day. Nice Friday expected. Not a lot. just not anything to talk about. Not to leave you guys kind of dry with information. Wisconsin, Michigan, UP, and Michigan, just quiet. Now you work your way further west into the Northern Plains. You see a lot of action going on over here. Let's talk about that. Northern Plains has been a hot topic, which typically is this time of the year. The jet has kind of moved north, jolted north, and it's kind of stationary right now. As we start to get into late August, September, it starts to kind of dip south a little bit more. That's when we start to get the cooler air beginning to build back in with the changing of the seasons. But we'll start off this morning. We got this spin right here, and this will just dump a ton of rain right over here in extreme eastern, southeastern Montana, the western Dakotas. You even got rain falling back here in the Yellowstone National Park, Idaho, eastern areas of Idaho, southwest Montana. But this is where the storms could be severe. It looks like you got some pretty intense storms showing up right down here in central areas of South Dakota, southern South Dakota, even basically the border of Nebraska and South Dakota. And it wants to develop a pretty intense cluster of storms right here in Nebraska as we get into the 8 to 9 p.m. So another night of storms going to sweep through the Nebraska area. I would say they come through a little bit earlier than what they've been coming through. So if you're anybody in central Nebraska, these eventually will make their way into eastern portions of the state. But if you're in eastern Nebraska, even western sections of the state, watch out later this evening. Right here in the middle of the state, you guys could get some strong to severe storms. But if you look up here, a lot of rain just going to spin around up here. This is going to dump a lot of rain into this region, and this just goes out throughout the next 24 hours. So I would say I'm going to try to spit out some names. Even Bismarck, you guys are going to get a lot of rain. Was that Dickinson? All the way down to Spearfish, maybe even Rapid City, get a good bit of rain. Miles City, Montana, especially points south and east. Baker, Montana. You guys could get a lot. Bowman, North Dakota. A lot of rain into this region today, okay? And in fact, the National Weather Service right here in this region going for 2 to 3, maybe as much as 4 inches of rain just over the next 24 hours. Okay, so please be mindful of the rain threat in this entire region right into here. The western U.S., the Four Corners region, a lot quieter today. Not a lot of rainfall. I definitely think you're going to get some more rain that falls in that section of Oregon I mentioned in yesterday morning's video, central to kind of east central Oregon, those mountainous regions in there. You guys could definitely get some rain. Some rain could fall around the Montana-Idaho border. Light to moderate rain is possible today. Nothing really in the form of storms. Could get some storm action, though, right here in the heart of Idaho, maybe in some of these lower elevations. Could get some storm action for sure. And this will continue. This is the kind of drift we get into this evening. Very rainy in extreme southwestern Montana. A lot of heavy rain could fall. You have a little isolated pocket of a slight risk of excessive rainfall into here. A lot of rain could fall in this region too. Okay, then we get all the way to tomorrow morning. We will, kind of show you guys in Idaho how much rain could fall. And, just 1/4 inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain right here in the border of southwest Montana and Idaho. If you live in this region, even Yellowstone National Park, somebody could get over an inch of rain. It's quite possible. Temperatures today, cooler. Definitely, it'll probably warm up to the low 70s for a lot of folks, but then you'll quickly cool back down with a lot of storm action that gets going. Right here in the Midwest, portions of the Ohio Valley, it'll warm into the upper 80s, low 90s. Definitely summer flexing its guns again, but there'll be that skinny corridor of cooler temperatures where you got cloud cover and rain. And then on the southern and southwest boundary of this rain, it warms up quickly. So if you're, working your way like this way, whether you're traveling today, you'll notice, for example, you'll be in St. Louis, Missouri, and if you're traveling southwest, by the time you get to Springfield, Missouri, it's going to be blazing hot. Warming up a little bit in South Carolina, but very hot in the south central U.S., well above 100 degrees. Pocket of much cooler air, well below average temperatures in Idaho, Wyoming, areas of Montana. Rain-cooled air setting up, warming up pretty decently, a little above average in Washington State. But that's all I got. God bless all y'all. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.